A blog post titled "Keep Insulting Doctors and Good Luck Finding a Physician in the Next 10 Years" recently went viral. I'm talking about it on this week's Wednesday Checkup. The blog written by Dr. Karen Seibert was done in response to a couple of articles from the Washington Post that referred to doctors as muggers and co-conspirators trying to take money away from the rest of us. Dr. Seibert completely disagreed with that, so I decided to talk about her article as well as interview her in this video. But first, let me give you my take on what's going on in our community. I certainly do feel that there's a growing angst against the medical profession, specifically doctors. I think this angst really does correlate with the spike in healthcare costs and the lack of transparency from the industry. I very much agree with this. I think healthcare costs are out of control, but I do not think that doctors are the main problem at all. I think the real problem lies with big pharma charging whatever they want for their medications, insurance companies and their lack of transparency for what's covered and what's not. Some of these prices are absolutely out of control. Second is the consolidations and the mergers that are happening. I feel like when you have a giant like CVS and Aetna merge or Walmart and Humana, we're promised lower prices and better outcomes, but we get the same outcomes and sometimes higher prices. And this is never checked upon by anybody in the government. And the biggest problem, the one that we talk least about, is the spike in administrative costs. Let's put this in perspective. In the US, we spend about 31% of our healthcare dollars on administrative costs. In Canada, it's 16%. Half of what we spend. We actually have the highest administrative costs in healthcare in the world. And the reason for that is our healthcare system is an absolute mess. It's so complex and non-transparent that you don't know what you're paying for. Insurance companies don't know what they pay for. Doctors don't know what treatments cost. There's been so many times that a patient comes into my office and asks me a very simple question like, "Doctor, what will this medicine cost?" Usually I can answer that. But if they say, "What about this MRI? What about this physical therapy? What about this subspecialist?" I don't know. And my training is in taking care of that patient's life, knowing the medicine behind it, not the billing practices and these complicated, ever-changing insurance policies. Also, while the administrative burden contributes to increased costs, it also contributes to burnout in the medical profession. Doctors have the highest suicide rate amongst any profession in the US, military included. A big contributor to this is the administrative burden. There's many things that doctors are now having to do that they never were trained to do or wanted to do in the first place. Electronic health records, prior authorizations, dealing with insurance companies to argue for care that their patients desperately need. Being a doctor is already a high-stress job. Making a mistake, whether you're a primary care doctor or a surgeon, can mean life or death for your patient. And when you sprinkle some extra fuel on that fire, from an administrative burden's sake, and even misinformation from economists and newspapers to then fuel hate towards us, that really makes the profession less valuable in our eyes. And it contributes to less individuals wanting to go into medicine. Look, you have to give up over a decade of your life to go study it, hundreds of thousands of dollars, a strong, intense passion and skill. You can do a lot of other things and make great money than be a doctor. The reason we do it is because we want to help people. We want to have the public's trust. We want to do the right thing. But if we're constantly being treated as if we're doing the wrong thing, there's less respect, we're being paid less, who's ever going to want to become a doctor? Before we jump into the interview with Dr. Seibert, I want to summarize the main points that she made in her article. First and foremost, she's upset that people are criticizing the medical field without truly understanding it. Those are economists, journalists. They don't understand the nuance that goes into being a doctor and what medical practice is like for us. Completely agree with that. Second, she goes on to explain that being a doctor is a high-stress job, whether you're a resident, an intern, a family medicine doctor, a surgeon. There's life or death decisions that are to be made every single day, and most people cannot even fathom what it's like to make those decisions. Her third and final point, and her biggest concern, is that there's a growing number of doctors leaving the field early, and a growing shortage that's becoming evident not just in primary care, but in subspecialties as well. Imagine going to the hospital and trying to get care and not getting it simply because there's not enough doctors. Without further ado, let's jump into the interview. How's it going?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Well, you certainly got a lot of popularity with this blog of yours. How do you feel about it?
It was certainly a surprise. I've been blogging for years, but I've never monetized it, never really sought attention, but apparently this struck a nerve, and I have to say I'm happy to see it.
What was your initial thought behind writing the article? What did you want to happen?
I didn't expect anything to happen. I simply had an opinion to express, and this means of expressing it. My husband always says Karen thinks everyone is entitled to her opinion, which he's not wrong. But I do feel as though I'm a well-trained writer, and sometimes I can express things more effectively than other physicians can. So I try to use that skill as best I can. What prompted me really to write it was just feeling outraged at the use of the word mugger.
Sure.
That's just over the top. The surgeon probably could have handled the situation better in the case of the patient with the out-of-network bill. But on the other hand, physicians are criticized when they don't disclose up front that they're out-of-network. So there were so many things that I felt were unbalanced, unfair, and really vilifying physicians in a way that we don't deserve to be vilified.
If you had to give a takeaway, not necessarily to the physician audience or the medical professional audience, but to the layperson, the person that goes to their doctor, is unsure why costs are going up, why insurances are going up, what message would you like to get out to them?
Your doctors have worked really hard and really long to train to take care of you. That's what we want to do, is take care of you. We are not the enemy. We are, in fact, a tiny, tiny percentage of overall healthcare costs. The insurance companies have their own side of this, but they have gotten so big. United Health posted a $14 billion profit last year. The CEO of Anthem, which runs Blue Cross Blue Shield, made $14 million in salary last year. I don't know any clinical physician on the front lines that makes a fraction of that. We are really not the source of the problem. And thinking that we are makes you think of us as not on your side. We are definitively on your side, and we want nothing more than to take care of you. The second point, which I did try to make in the article, is that ours is a stressful line of work. If you think that we're really taking off Wednesday afternoon to play golf, I don't even know where that stereotype came from, but it's hilarious. I mean, who does that? Nobody does that. That's crazy. We work nights, we work weekends. My son is a third-year internal medicine resident right now. Nobody wants to know how hard and how long he works. This 80-hour work week, okay, not really true.
Why do you think doctors are not great advocates for themselves to defend themselves from this critique? I feel that we're either force ourselves into silence, we think that this is not our battle to convince patients that we're out for them. Why is it that we have this disadvantage, you think?
I would agree with both of your comments. We were brought up to be professionals. 50 years ago, physicians didn't advertise. They would have thought it was beneath their dignity to advertise. Now, if you're not on social media, if you're not putting yourself forward, you really are hiding your light under a bushel and no one is going to know what you do. But the holdover from that is still very prevalent. We feel, frankly, that it's beneath our dignity often to try to defend ourselves. We feel as though we should be better than that. But in this situation, I think I was compelled to write because I wasn't defending myself. I was defending everyone else. And that was why I wanted to give a shout out to the family practice physicians, to the interns and the residents, to all the people. We're all in this together. Nobody does this alone.
The title of your article is Keep Insulting Doctors, and then in 10 years, there may not be enough doctors, something along those lines.
Right.
Why do you worry that in the next 10 years, we may have a shortage that's not only due to a lack of people going into medicine because of the difficulty of the field, but also specifically because of the insults that we're receiving? People
who go into medicine are smart, they're hard workers, they're very motivated, they have other choices. I'll just put it bluntly. So if you pay attention and you see what's going on, you might very well say to yourself as a bright young college student, do I need this? The other point is that there's a huge emphasis today on work-life balance, and I don't blame people for that. My generation was not brought up that way, but it's very much a generational thing. However, if doctors are avoiding professions like vascular surgery, neurosurgery, invasive cardiology, heart surgery, because of the length of training and the long hours and the suffering that's involved in attaining proficiency at those levels, we're not going to have people going into those fields. We're up to about 50% of women in medical schools now, but the number of women that go into those fields is vanishingly small. Even in my profession, people want jobs in outpatient surgery centers. They want no nights, no weekends. They don't want to do what I do, which is thoracic anesthesiology, which involves taking sick patients with lung disease and ventilating only one of their lungs while the surgeon operates on the other. It's stressful. It takes a lot of proficiency. People don't want to work that hard. So even if we graduate more medical students, right now the government isn't funding enough residency positions to train them all in specialties because resident funding hasn't increased since 1979.
Is there any last messages you'd like to get out to the YouTube community?
To the YouTube community, your doctors really actually love you and want to take care of you. So work with us. Eat healthy, exercise, don't smoke, stay out of the sun, and we will in turn keep working on your behalf because we really do care.
Thank you so much, doctor. Very much appreciate your time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
After speaking with Dr. Seibert and thinking about this article on my own, I've come to the conclusion that doctors can really advocate better for themselves. We have a role to play in this situation. We need to not just sit back and listen to people badmouth our industry and talk about us being muggers and co-conspirators. We truly do care about our patients and we want to do better. I think doctors need not be afraid to step outside their comfort zones and let their voices be heard. Explain to the general public the nuances of being a doctor, the difficulties that we face with administrative burdens. Ways that we can do that? Go on the news. Write a blog like Dr. Seibert. Have a YouTube channel like Dr. Mike. If you want to check out more of my medical videos, click here for this playlist I put together special for you. Let's watch it together, being happy and healthy.